Hello, YouTube. How you doing? And I am not coming to you from a spaceship somewhere, although I might look like I am. I'm wearing the fabulous BrainTap device, and you guys are in for a treat today. What an incredible tool this is! So many of you know that I have. I'm a big believer in meditation, and I have been doing it for over a decade now. I believe that meditation has been the key to first just me being able to navigate the waters of entrepreneurship and regulate my nervous system in a way where I feel healthy, I feel relaxed, and at my best mental capacity to get out there and make things happen. And I've been sharing this on my social media, either through Instagram, YouTube, in my coaching program, Astro Flipping. And I also truly believe that it has contributed to me becoming as successful as I have been. And I never really understood the science behind how that was possible, right? How is sitting in silence going to create wealth in my life? Well, I also have been talking to you guys about how I've learned that what you are experiencing in your internal world is being reflected to you in the exterior reality that you have and live. And so really aligning yourself and tuning yourself up energetically, mentally, spiritually, will lead to physical reality in abundance. And so I have a very special friend visiting with us today, and he's going to give us the science, the neuroscience behind wealth. The neuroscience behind wealth. What an incredible concept to even realize that this is a scientific process, right? And what does that mean? What does it mean when something is a scientific process? It means that you can replicate it and get the results yourself. That's the scientific method. It's not scientific if I can't share it with you and you repeat that same thing and get the similar result, then it's not science, right? That's just woo-woo. But we're talking actual science. And this individual is responsible for creating this device. And I've been using this now for about 6 months. And my goodness, this thing has absolutely changed meditation for me. I'm experiencing deeper states of meditation. I actually feel completely different after a meditation using this. And so I want to understand what the heck is going on. Right? What is this thing doing to me? Because it's got these little flashing lights that I can see kind of behind my eyelids, and the sounds are coming from in different places, but it's very soothing. It's like an incredible experience. I wish for all of you to be able to enjoy that. But without further ado, I'm going to bring up Mr. Patrick Porter. Dr. Porter, how are you?
I'm doing well. That was good description there you're having.
Thank you, and thank you for the incredible invention that you've created here, the BrainTap. Before we get into the neuroscience of wealth, how did you come up with this? I mean, did an alien bring this to you? Where did this come from?
You could say, I always say, I think it was a God wink, because I happened to be at a seminar. This was in 1985, where I met some people doing something similar to this. And I didn't have the money to actually fund it, but I never let that stand in my way. And some coincidental things happened. I have a background in electronics. The guy who invented their technology passed away, but didn't leave anybody any information. So I was able to reverse engineer that. And then we were partners for a while in a company called Light and Sound Research. Then they gave that up, and I started a franchise company, but I kept the the goal alive. This is the 16th generation of a light and sound vibration device that I've created.
Wow. Wow. And light and sound, right? So what is this? What does this do for the brain when you're in meditation, and how does the light and the sound down regulate my or change my brain waves? Because I can sense that it's happening. I mean, because the normal racing mind that I get when I'm trying to meditate, it's very hard, right, to sit still and do nothing, concentrating on your breath. It sounds simple, but within about 30 seconds, you're like, oh, what did I forget to turn on the dishwasher? Is my dog eating my shoe? I don't think I put my shoes away. Like your mind starts just going in all directions, right? But I notice when I'm putting this thing on, that's not what's happening.
Right. Yeah, we've actually shown that when people meditate on their own without light, about 30% of the brain goes to sleep, and that can cause some people to go into a little state of anxiety, what they call the sympathetic system. So we've actually shown most people meditate actually harm their brain more than help it, because they're stressing themselves out. Like you said, they're afraid. So what we can do is, because we're using all the senses, the body, we're just not using the sense of smell and taste, but the other three. And so the brain basically becomes aware of what's called first attention. So everything else kind of goes away. And when you can do that and relax the body, whatever nutrients you're taking, it's going to be better. But the number one thing it's going to do is going to offload kinetic energy in the body. So when you say what's going on, if you have the kinetic load on the body, every cell has piezo energy. It creates energy in the form of ATP, but as an electrical charge, you can actually measure it. It gives off photons. So the body is doing all these things. So it's how is the body regulating after an activity is the key. But what we're going to do with light, the body is always reflecting whatever frequency that is. So we're going to change the brain frequency, and we can go into, there's actually 3 different times of the day, and there's different brainwave activity training, what we call brainwave entrainment, which means we're going to train the brain to go into those states. But we're going to do it the way the brain was designed to do it. Like you didn't know that your ancestors knew they were around water because they started to vibrate to the frequency of 10 hertz, which just happens to be alpha. And when we go into the mountains, for instance, and we get into those high altitudes, there's a reason people say, I had a mountaintop experience. Well, that's high gamma. And you're going to release DMT, and you're going to have an incredible experience because GABA is released in DMT, and the body has a spiritual experience. But when you have the stress, when the body is tied up in stress, that stress means that your brain cannot flow to the different, there might be a solution, you have a solution, but you can't get to it because the stress in that moment has shut down your nervous system, so you can't get to the answer. We've all heard the expression, the internet's down, when they can't get on the internet. But the reality is the internet never went down, their connection to it did. And sometimes that's what happens with our brain. We call that neuroplasticity, but through stress, our brain can have what's called neuropruning. So sometimes, things that we do well, sometimes we neuroprune those when we should be honing them. And then we focus on the wrong things. In other words, we focus on all the things we shouldn't do and the negative things. And the brain has to keep those wired in because we said we can't do them anymore. So the brain is marking them out in conscious space and time so that you don't forget to have the worry or the shame or the guilt or whatever else is going on.
Wow. I mean, thank you for that very incredible explanation, and it makes sense. And oddly enough, I'm an entrepreneur. My community, we buy and sell real estate, but I have a degree in science, and so the things that you are talking about right now make total sense to me. I mean, we are electrical beings, right? We're electrical beings. Everything is vibrating. Everything is frequency. And I know that when I am in certain emotional states, even that I'm in a different frequency. And what's really interesting about being in those different frequencies, if we also understand science and that like attracts like, when you put 2 water molecules apart 3 inches apart from each other and give them 30 minutes, they come together, either from their charge, but also because like things attract each other, right? Mm-hmm. And so when I have a specific frequency in my heart, a specific frequency, an emotional frequency, I realize that I'm emitting an electromagnetic field, and then things of like nature will find me. I actually collide with those things, and it's a little spooky, right? It's like, but it's not. It's science, and so you have when we were speaking offline, you were talking to me about the neuroscience of wealth. Well, the people who are tuning into this channel, they don't follow me because I'm handsome. They follow me because they think there's a benefit that they're going to be able to gain from learning things about how to become more wealthy. So if you could help us understand the neuroscience behind wealth, how can we put our head around it, and how can we all tap into the technology, the science behind the wealth, so that everybody watching this can actually go out and do it themselves?
Right. I think number one, we're innate with that. We have it. What stops us is our belief system. We say the fathers, mothers, preachers, and teachers, and all those other people that told you what to be, how to think it. And so the first thing we need to do is start peeling that away. Once that happens, then we can start teaching people to downregulate and get into those altered states of consciousness. And then what'll happen is the neuroscience is that the more, in fact, this goes also to longevity. So if you're thinking, hey, I'm going to make all this wealth and then I'm going to work on my health, they say the number one thing you can do for longevity is to be positive. They've actually tracked it. 10 years you get added to your life just by being positive, removing the negative. So right. As we focus on the things we don't want to do, then we have to replace those with 2 or 3 things we want to do. So the brain starts to shift its energy, because a real entrepreneur knows it's just like the Chinese proverb that says the success happens because you fall down 3 times and get up 4. It's you got to get up because you're going to get knocked down. Did you learn something from that? And did you learn to capitalize that? And if you have to get over the shame game or the blame game and all those things, and just say, hey, the outcome is the result. What is the outcome? So if the outcome is what you wanted, then you had a success. If you didn't know or think about what the outcome is, the brain doesn't know what to do. In fact, one of the reasons that like this law of attraction works is because our thoughts are magnetic in nature. They do go out and they collect. So when you focus on that with a singular thought of what you want and let the universe fill it in. Think about AI. Everybody thinks it's so big a deal. Well, you have 100 billion neural bit processor in your brain. That's what makes up the brain. And each neuron connection right now is more powerful than like all the computers we have on Earth. So, I mean, we have the computing power that dwarfs anything right now. And some would say we are quantum computers, the way we operate. The problem is we don't use all that potential. It's there, but we don't have the capacity to access it. And I think that's where, when you have more energy. So people ask, why do we use flashing lights with your eyes closed and lights in the ears? Well, we want to get energy into the brain. And what the science shows with light therapy, like 650 nanometer light and 470 nanometer light, is what those the colors are, the red and the blue. And what happens is the cells will absorb the energy, the photic energy from the red blood cells, and actually speeds up the cell's production of ATP, they say 32 times. So when you're around somebody, they have charisma, they have energy, because people follow that. And if you don't have energy to make a decision, the cells need the energy, right? And now we've moved from a farming kind of mentality to a sit behind the desk mentality, and we've got to get our brain, we still have to get our brain working. So I think the number one thing is shifting the brain's gears. A lot of people, it's okay to be stressed out, but it's also okay to just downregulate and relax. And the better you can do that, actually, the better your brain score is. And what we found, we can talk a little bit about Julie Arndt's study we did with the Googlers, where we can go a little deeper, but we basically taught them to do a BrainTap session at 2:00 in the afternoon. And at first they weren't going to do it because they didn't think it would help. But overall, they had a 23% uptick in their work product, which means they were 23% more effective by taking a 20-minute break, and they had more energy. We had them take a PONS test for depression, and they were all clinically depressed, really, and we improved in general 70% improvement in the depression score. They had more energy, they had a better home life, all these things just by taking that break in the middle of the day. Because if you read almost every successful person in history, they always had a catnap kind of experience. And they had a way, and that really was to downregulate their nervous system, because we have this stress response when we awaken in the morning. Now, if you've learned to harness that stress response, which means now you use it as a motivation response, meaning that you're looking at life as a challenge rather than a threat. Our brain, unfortunately, is designed to look at everything as a threat. We're not going to live that long. We're not going to have the opportunities come up, and basically gloom and doom. But we want that part of the brain that is designed to expand, basically when you have that energy, you become creative in your thinking. You start to look at ways you can plus a situation instead of looking at it as a threat.
Right.
So they even had studies done during COVID where they showed the people that looked at COVID as a challenge over people that looked at it as a threat. The people that looked at it as a threat had 200 times less light energy coming from them. And because
Wow.
we all have light energy, so they can measure that with a photic meter, so we know what's generating off the body. Mostly it's a 10 nanometer light, which is healing light. So some
Right.
people have more of that light than others just naturally.
Well, and when you look at the double slit experiment, right? And we know that the natural world, the material world that we see is actually a product of two different functions. There's particle and wave, right? We all are particle and wave, meaning that you are light.
Yeah.
And your state,
we're just like what they're seeing right now on the screen. They're doing the same thing with electricity. So
right.
That's not me on the screen they're seeing. That's a projection of me sitting here that went over the air. It's our way of doing it's a little cruder than what they say is actually happening in the consciousness space. So we're just mirroring what's going on there. So there's a connection to that. There's a reason when you start thinking about people, the more you tune in, the more you get outside yourself and start realizing the solutions inside you, and that you need to look at it from a place of empowerment, then you start to see the energy flow and what's going on, because you'll see the drainers in your life, the people that are taking you away from your goals. You'll see the gainers, the ones that are going to be behind you as your cheerleader or help you with support and knowledge. And the problem is when you don't know where you're going because you didn't take the time to focus. When Deepak Chopra, back over almost 20 years ago, he said 97% of what you're going to do tomorrow you know about today. So what are you pretending not to know? When people are eating poorly or doing different things, and then they get in those experiences, I said, I can't believe I'm overweight. I can't believe I'm doing this. Well, then the brain hides those things from you because the brain wants you to always be right. And also it will shut down circuits to support you. What I mean by that is the brain is a big energy hog. And if you want to feel sorry for yourself and be depressed, you can create that low frequency response. When a good friend of mine, Doug Grant, I was on a podcast of his, and he says, frequency is what you frequently see. And so
that's a great one.
So when you think about that, so when you think about low energy people, these are the negative naysayers, the ones that you want to, some you can't get rid of their family. So, you got to be around them, but you got to have a way to get that slime off you once they're gone, because you're not going to change them. Unless you have some metaphysical way to do that, but you can change your perception of how you experience them. So in the process of doing that, you want to find the gainers, the ones that when you're around them, there are people that they're 1 + 1 together, and then they're like 6. Their brain capacity and their output and their creative thinking and their problem solving, there is those matches. And when you do find some of those matches, that's when you think, wow, I think I've known you forever or something. Maybe you only know for a little bit of time. That's because when you're in somebody's energy, what the NIH, our National Institute of Health, if you go to their website, 1994 said we have an energy field. They call it a biofield. It can extend up to 18 feet around us. Well, when you're in that field, if two powerful people are in that field, you're exchanging a lot more than light energy. You're exchanging biophotic information. And what we know is that we are holographic in nature. Like we can read our eyes and know about the health of our body. We can read our ears, our hands, our feet. The medical doctors that are like in the Eastern medicine world, our body is like a hologram. It just keeps repeating itself. So that means when we're around people, the more tuned in we are, the more we share in the energy and the flow of consciousness. And that's really what's happening now as you find your tribe. If you haven't found your tribe, you feel disconnected, because they know like in the green zones, they talk about people that live the longest, they have friends and they have connections, not just Facebook followers, which is okay, but you want to have real people to be around too, because you get that exchange of energy.
Right. And I 100% can resonate with that, because I have a very close collaborator. People who are tuning into this know Mr. Pace Morby. He's one of these types. He's one of those gainers in my life, one of the people that has helped propel me and worked with me, and we've collaborated. And when you speak of 1 + 1 = 6, that's exactly what that relationship is like. Yet I've had other relationships in my life where that diminish me, that suck my energy from me. And because they are in that lower frequency, and because they are those they like to wallow in that, or be in that chemistry. I almost feel like it's an addictive quality, right? Because but the body
is addictive. Yes.
It's addictive, right? And I think we get addicted to the chemistry of either positivity or negativity. And if you're in the with a negative person, you can almost see how they'll loop around in their mind of thoughts and things and feelings and circumstances that are all fictitious mainly, but they do it in a way, and the worry and the anxiety and the the depression, the sadness that, oh my God, I'm never going to make it, or oh my God, I'm not going to be able to pay my bills. And then they, I think, produce a chemicals, cortisol in their body. And then the body needs that cortisol, just like you would if you were a heroin addict. If you were shooting heroin every day and you stop shooting heroin one day, you're going to get sick. And so I think that the negative person, they almost can't stop thinking the negative thoughts because their body feels sick. It's in withdrawal, right?
And I believe that exactly. That's what I tell people. You get addicted to your neurochemistry because you can't get enough external support. Like you can't get enough dopamine, you can't get enough GABA, you can't get enough acetylcholine, you can't get enough of these neurotransmitters. Now we usually build them up during sleep, but if we can get like most people don't know dopamine, which is probably the biggest block. It's like a if you have it, it's really good as a motivated person to have it, but then it could be double-edged sword, as they say, could cut you, because if you're too much cortisol, what happens is the liver starts dumping sugar continuously into the system. So then and you can only have 1 tablespoon of circulating sugar in the bloodstream or you'll have toxemia. So that means the body has to start rapid production of fat to store that. Now the body doesn't know you didn't just have a Snickers bar. It thinks you did because you had the same amount of sugars if you were, eating a Snickers bar, but you're not running from anything. You're just sitting there. You're just sitting at the desk or you're sitting on your phone, whatever it is. Well, if you look at that situation as a threat, guess what? That can happen. They say up to 300 times a day with some people. Right. They keep checking their phone. Every time they look, they're looking for bad news. If you look at your phone, I don't know what happened if you're looking at every time expecting something positive. Maybe it would be an incredible, wonderful thing. But I know that if you just look at, what's going on and you reframe things from problems to solutions, the subconscious will help you to solve that problem because they're probably calling you or you're a part of that because that's what it is, or you have the research capability to find a solution. I love the story of Henry Ford where they said they tried to shut him down because they said he wasn't smart enough to start a car company. So he said, well, come on in and I'll show you how smart I am. And they started quizzing him. They said, well, what do you think about the chemical reactions of blah, 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 blah? He says, just a minute. He presses a button, brings in his chemist. They explain it. He goes right down the line. Everything they asked, he had an expert. They all came in and they said, well, we're not talking about them. We're talking about you. He said, no, I was smart enough to hire all those guys. That's my expertise. So some people think they need to know everything. You just need to know where to go get everything. And now with the internet, we've shortened that gap. With AI, we're shortening that gap. So we're finding, I'm not saying get hooked up to AI on a physical basis, but just having it in our technology, it's changing the game for so many people that I think it's going to start liberating our brains and our consciousness really to be more creative, because creative cultures survive. If you stop the creativity and everybody, what I tell people mostly is that we need more people that are thinkers rather than followers.
Right.
If you think about what they're saying, who's saying it? Why are they saying it? Is it really positive? Is it really good for me? Without shame, blame, or guilt. And then you can make that decision, then that's fine. But a lot of times people just blindly follow the powers that be that aren't really the powers that be. You're the power to be in you.
Yes.
And your mind and body synchronized becomes a galvanizing force that even like people like, there's a guy that goes underwater in the ice water, the Iceman, they call him.
Yeah.
And he does the breathing exercises. They tried to poison him. I mean, he let them, and he showed him that with his breath work, it didn't affect his body. So, I mean, things like that just blow my mind. We don't know the capacity of what we can do. So many people are standing up saying, hey, I only use 10% of my brain, whatever, and almost as a brag. And the reality is we use 100% of our brain. We just don't use 100% of its capacity. We use it in a way that's underperforming. It's like having a Jaguar or a Lamborghini, whatever, and you're cruising around the back streets of Morocco, where nobody can see you and it's bumpy and rocky. You just wouldn't do that. You'd be out on the nice streets, where you cruise and have the top down and all that. But most people don't realize that about their own body.
Right. underutilizing our brain. We're using 100% of our brain, and that makes sense because if somebody took a big chunk out of it, you'd probably notice. And so you must be using 100% of your brain, but you're not using it to its capacity, right? And so
Correct.
it's like and great analogy, driving a Ferrari and a back alley in Morocco, right? Instead of being on the Autobahn or being rolling down the Sunset Strip and having people look at you and or racing it on a track. Now I know you're affiliated with the Quantum Institute, right? Is that correct?
Quantum University, yes.
The Quantum University, and the quantum field is something that I'm very interested in. I've been I feel like I have visited it when I get into deep states of meditation, and I'm in that black void, right, where I almost forget who I am. I don't know what I'm dissociated. I'm no longer Jamil. I'm everything. I'm in all of it, right? And so what's really interesting is when you can be in that void, and if you can bring up a potential of something you're wanting to create in your life. My belief is that is, and that reality and you become quantum entangled. And if you have, for people joining us today, I'm with Dr. Porter. He's a lot of you, the audience is growing, so people are just tuning in. We're talking about the neuroscience of wealth and how his invention here, the BrainTap, has been an incredibly useful tool for me in my meditation. It gets me into deep, deep, deep states of meditation. And when I'm in those deep states of meditation, I feel like I'm building universes, right? I feel like I'm in there creating for myself new opportunities, new potentials, new relationships. And then I walk in life expectant of those things, and lo and behold, they arrive. And I've been seeing this over and over and over again, and I've been repeating it in my life over and over again. And I got people in the community who have been doing this themselves, and they're like, Jamil, I have a high school education, and I started doing these meditations, and all of a sudden I feel better. And then when I'm doing my work, I start actually connecting with people in a deeper level, and then all of a sudden I'm under contract on a property, Jamil, and I'm making $15,000 at the end of the week. What did you do? And it's not me. You did this. It's the people. We have the power within us. I'm only showing you the things that I'm doing so that you can do them yourself. I'm not the man who's tapping you on the shoulder. You're the person tapping yourself on the shoulder, getting you to the thing. So as you know, at the Quantum University, is what I'm saying hogwash? Am I actually entangling myself with my future mansion, with my future car, or my future wife? Am I entangling myself into that future by going into the quantum field and then and experiencing it there?
Yeah, well, yes. I mean, there's only an infinite number of those futures. So if you think about what you're doing is like a bowling ball rolling on a carpet, and you want to go to this side of the carpet. So I'm pointing up. You can't see me, but you're pointing over there. You want to roll you got to go directly at that. You can't take your eye off the ball, in other words. So the more consistent, the more focused, the more power you have in it, that magnetic field is attracted, just like any other magnet would. And it starts with our blood. Our blood has iron in it, right? And it creates an energy field. This energy field works with our chemistry. And the more we stay in alignment with that, then we get drawn to that. We get experiences that prove us out. If we have to work through our shame and guilt or whatever it is to get that, or whatever's going on, then we have to learn to reframe that. Because think of thoughts like this. A thought becomes a thing. We know that, but it also starts to crystallize. Some people have this thought pattern every day, and they wonder why they keep getting the same result, the same pattern, same everything. So think about that like a radio station. They only have one crystal. Back when I was growing up, we used to build radios. So you go to the Radio Shack and you get this crystal and say, "Oh, that's Keener 14." You put it in your potato and you put a speaker in it. You got a radio. Wow! But if you didn't want to listen to that, you had to go get another radio. Well, what I'm saying is we got to take people's radio and change the frequency, change it, get that out. And the reality is that everyone's past, believe it or not, has been deleted, distorted, and changed. It's something I learned in NLP with Dr. Bandler and Grinder. When they were teaching us, they said everything is a lie. So whatever the past has done to you, don't allow it to happen through you. You look at it as experiences and you learn from those experiences, or guess what? You create those
Again,
fields that work without you. Like Bruce Lipton said, 95% of your life is controlled by your subconscious, not by your conscious mind, because you don't know which 50 million cells per second to change out to be, so you stay functioning in the 75 trillion cells that need information about, bringing in energy and expelling waste. Although there's so many things going on, there's trillions and trillions. And I think saying that we operate 5% of it is giving us a lot of credit, because there's so much more going on in the body. So what we have to do is we have to stay focused. So to get your result, then when you start to see the clues, we call them God winks, that coincidence. The people it's like think of them and they call you or text you, go, wow, this is spooky. How did that happen? It's because your quantum entanglement. And the more power you have, the more power you start to generate, the more your field. It's just like being when I was on like KOA radio in Denver, that station at night when everybody else powers down and that one powers up, they heard me in, I think, almost 20 states because they turned up the power. So think of your own power. You're in every person you've ever seen, heard, or experienced time with in any way. That quantum entanglement's there. And guess what? They now say in neuroscience that you are 7 generations forwards and backwards. And what's really strange about that in genetic research is that the Hopi Indians said that over 100 years ago, said that the ancestors in their future people are guiding them 7 generations forwards and backwards. So I don't know how they knew that. It's like there is a field of energy on a quantum level. The reality is that we're having this talk in a probable universe, where we both don't exist, but now we're happening because somebody thought they should watch this video. It's not about us; it's about them watching it.
Yeah.
So, and then we're also.
Are you entertained?
Yeah. What I tell my students is, I said, we can think like that in here, but don't do it out in public. You might get locked up. Because
it's true. It's like we're all on the Truman Show at some level, right? Anyone who's watched that movie, old poor Jim Carrey is literally he was the entertainment of the entire world, right? They all watching this one guy's little bubble, and the whole thing was happening for him. All of it was happening for him. And when you realize that everything was happening for him, you can actually take that parallel and say, is this what's happening in my life? Is everything happening for me? Is this all happening for me? Yeah, at some level it is, but it's also happening for that person in that person's universe, right? And we're all doing this simultaneously and doing it in a creative way. And of course, an infinite intelligence is going to have infinite ability to do this. Well, how could it not? It's infinite. Right. And so it has all the power. It can do all the things. And when you think about it from the quantum entanglement process, if you understand the Big Bang, right? We were all this little pea-sized, thing of energy. And then that means that at one point, at one time, the spirit of me, you, all the things was all together. And when if it was all together at one point, it went poof, and went off and became all of this, then how are we not all connected? How are we not all quantumly entangled? We are. And that's how I can call certain people to me, how I can call certain opportunities to me, how I can call $1 million payday to me, because that $1 million and I are entangled with each other. I just have to bring it to myself, right? So when we're in these meditative states, Dr. Porter, we put this device on, and I do it twice a day. Now that you're talking about 3 times a day, I didn't realize I'm missing a thing. But I've been doing it in the morning. So here's my process, right? I'm a little bit of a hacker, and I'm a nerd to this with these kinds of stuff. So I do a 20-minute breath work session first. I get myself into like a very, 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 very deep state. All the good chemicals are dumped in the body. I got beta carboline in there. I've got, a little DMT in there. And I got all this stuff is in my system now, all naturally produced. I'm not doing any drugs. I'm naturally dumping these chemicals into my body. I put the BrainTap on, and I quickly get onto the app, and I choose the meditation, right? And it's usually about the success, abundance, because this is what my life is, and that's where I'm focused. And so in I go. And when I come out, the way I feel is way, way, way different than if I just sat down, closed my eyes, and repeated a mantra, or told read affirmations to myself in the mirror. All of which, guys, I think are great. I think all of those practices are great. You can do them all, but there's something different about putting yourself into that state, dumping all those chemicals into your body, and then putting this thing on. Am I doing too much, Dr. Porter, or am I supercharging the result?
No, I was kind of smiling because that's something like what I do in the morning, every morning to get my brain. Because when you start, but we do have breathing processes on BrainTap, so you could be wearing the BrainTap at the same time. There's some of the breath source programs, but then I'll go down after I'm done with that. Then I'll select the one that I want for whatever I want to listen to at this time, or if I'm listening to one that I just created to make sure it's all working. That's where a lot of mine.
And I haven't found the breathwork sessions on so I just got to find them on the app.
Yeah,
there's breathworks, and all of those sessions, they come with the device, right?
Yes,
So I got this device, guys, and then I download the app. I have my all the meditations there, and I didn't realize there was a breathwork session there. Now I feel like, oh my goodness, what's going to happen next? Because this is going to be
there's more than one. There's a lot of the top breath people from YouTube, actually.
Wow.
That we encoded their sessions. They did them for BrainTap, so they incorporated, you're going to be wearing the equipment and doing that kind of thing. Although you can do it, of course, without it on YouTube. People do all the time. But
yeah,
what we want to show is if you can stimulate, what's happening differently is most people have said to their family or friends, my kids are too tired to sleep because they're running around, whatever. Well, most adults are too tired to meditate. So what you were doing was you were supercharging the brain's ATP, because through the breath and through movement, you were creating ATP. Now what you do, when you put on the BrainTap, is the light energy member is going to increase that 32 times.
Wow.
So if you start, instead of starting at 2, let's say you started at 6, that's a lot more. You understand? Because it's a multiple. It's a fractal math problem. It's not just a math problem, which means the Fibonacci sequence has to be played out in all functions of the body in some form. So it's never just 1. It's 1, then 3, then 6, then 9, and keeps going. And whatever that is, it keeps expanding, just like we did, when we went from 1 to 2 to 3, and, we just kept expanding. And somehow the intelligence of that one cell, there is what they say, like the core cell or whatever, that actually has the true genetic memory of who we are. Well, I believe that we can reactivate that through frequency. And it was proved to me in Chicago, actually, just a couple of years ago at a radionics conference, which is a healing conference using radio frequencies. And there was a guy there that showed seeds from Monsanto that had been basically contaminated. They didn't reproduce. They were only one-time seeds. So you'd have to buy the seeds again the next year and the next year and the next year. And of course.
Yeah, just like Apple does with these stinking phones.
Yeah,
I got this. I don't think I've owned this thing 6 months, and now all of a sudden they've got a new one coming out. And guess what's crashing every day right now?
Yes. Yeah, we were just talking about that. Yeah, there's something to that.
It's incredible. Yeah. So the 3 times a day. Let's get into that a little bit. So I'm doing it in the morning. And I do it before bed. So those are the 2 that I'm in now, right? What time of day am I missing?
Well, the time of the day that you're missing is around 2:00 in the afternoon.
Okay.
And what our study with Julie Arndt showed, the 23% improvement in workload, but also 54% happier, because that's the time every morning when you wake up, your chemical system, the cortisol, the dopamine, and all that you get when you first wake up, norepinephrine, that's going to wake your brain up. Well, you're either going to trigger that with your own brain, or you're going to have a cup of coffee. The worst thing is don't do the coffee, because when you do, that cortisol trough that's supposed to last until 12:00 and diminish at 2:00 when your temperature drops 2 degrees, it will start dropping now, and you'll crash before that. And what they know is that most people are like 1/3 is productive in the afternoon after lunch than they are before lunch. So it's almost like, that's why they say you just not do work in the afternoon. So what we wanted to show them was, what if you broke that up by doing a BrainTap session? And we used those sessions. They're called SMR sessions, and they're in the app. It's the her sessions are in there, not her course, but her sessions are in there for peak performance. And what happens is now we're feeding energy to the brain restarts. It's almost like they got a new morning, and that's why they got the 23% more work done. They were working, they had the energy. If not, you're kind of daydreaming, looking around. You don't even realize you're just like, you get into YouTube and start watching cat videos, like they say. And then before you know it, you watched 100 cat videos, and there's no more time in your day to learn whatever you went on the internet to learn.
Yeah, I've fallen down a TikTok hole before, and it was 3.5 hours later, I'm out of it, and I'm like, what, what happened to me just now? It was crazy.
And that's the dopamine. That's the dopamine problem. Most people don't realize you don't get a payoff from your addiction.
Yeah,
you get a payoff by doing your addiction. So like, it's not, when you have it, there's no reward with dopamine. So that means you got to go get it again. You got to go get it again. You got to go get it again. What is the internet doing for us? Like these TikTok, they're shorter and shorter. I had one of our videos got 2.75 million views for 8 seconds. They're like little 8 seconds. It's just a little 8-second thing, but it's like people have enough time for that 8 seconds, but they don't have time to listen to the real video where they learn all this, all this information. They just want to know, tell me the facts right now. I'm on to the other thing, and they want it all quick and easy.
That's incredible. So we've got the morning, we've got post lunch, right? So you don't want to do this on a full stomach. You want to do this after your body. So if you're eating lunch at noon, guys, you want to digest for a couple of hours and then throw this on. And then in the evening before bed, there's a sleep meditation there that has been just phenomenal for me. And it's like the only thing that's a little hard is just like, I'm like, oh, I'm so asleep. And then I take the thing off. There was a couple nights where I just fell asleep with it on, so there's nobody in my bed beside me. So it's like, what, I'm not going to scare anybody, but
right.
Maybe if there was, it might be like, oh, I'm sleeping beside a robot over here. But, but what are some of the other benefits? Like for me, I've been finding, it's been really good for helping myself visualize new goals, new opportunities to manifest. What else would you say?
One of the things when we work with the golf team down in Florida there at Seminole College, they're 4 years in a row national champions. And what the school noticed was these girls had the highest GPA in the school. And we weren't working on their GPA. We were working on their golf game. So what we concluded was it was all about teaching the brain, giving it more energy, and then they were smarter, kind of like the Mozart effect. So we did a study where we showed what the Mozart effect is music. So we were doing this program with Baroque classical music, and we showed when you're using it, your brain synchronizes, you get into that, what we call hypermnesia mode, super memory mode, and then, but the music stops, it stops. So we did is we put my algorithm that I have under that same music for the same length of time. It took just under 72 hours for the brain to regulate back to its stress state that we altered it from just for the 5-minute introduction to the music. So the algorithm made the difference, but the carrier wave was that music. So in our sessions, we have, most people, what they find is sleep is the number one, like you said, but they just find they face challenges better. They make decisions. One of the biggest difference in the neuroscience of wealth is that somebody who's wealthy will look through, they won't immediately say no. They might not say yes, but they might say yes with a caveat because they never know what's going to be the next opportunity. And they're used to, if they've really made it in life, unless they're just super lucky, someone I've never met on the earth in my 63 years, they have failed before and they know the signs of it. So they can get involved and then they know when to exit before it crushes their life and their experience. So some people are where they are because they know what to avoid, and other people just got lucky. But I think the long-term people, the old saying, there's either with the pilots, there's either brave or there's daring. You don't have a brave, daring pilot, and there aren't very many daring pilots left, so that, that's the way it works. So, if you're a risk taker, that's fine. But to really be successful, you need to know the risk and then navigate that into a system. And when you start seeing going off track, that's just as valuable as people who are looking for just the positive solution. It's been my experience that nothing actually goes the way you plan. You have to be adaptable and be willing to think outside the box, and that's another trait of somebody who's ultra rich. They think out of experience. They don't think just because they've never done it, just because nobody's ever thought about it. They will brainstorm. That's how we got a lot of these deal programs that are going on right now. not just in real estate. There's always been those, the wheeler dealer with, the plot of land and things like that, because it's an asset, right? And there are other things that we can do. But the thing is, a lot of people just said, no, we can't do that because it wasn't on the rule sheet when they started. But how are you going to, you've got to be willing to break the rules in a safe way, or I should say expand the rules and then see if you can start to include them, because we don't really know where we're going. We don't know where the future is going to bring us. I do think it's going to be the best. Right now, there's no better time than right now, in all of history. Even though it looks like there's wars all over the world, there's actually less war than there was even 200 years ago on the planet, because everybody was fighting back then, little wars going on. It seems like our consciousness was such, if somebody else had it, we had to go take it, and now we're changing that. We're flipping that switch and saying, hey, how can I be more socially conscious? What can I do to make sure? Because we're starting to understand what the Indians said, that we don't own the earth, we rent it for our children. And, sooner or later, somebody's not going to be able to clean it up.
Right.
Yep. So the wealthy mind, and I'm just saying that's like toxic thoughts too. I mean, the people that don't succeed and they bring you down, they're always looking for reasons not to do it. Hey, it's safe. Just go get a job. Don't worry about it. Don't push yourself.
Yeah.
There are going to be some sacrifices along the way, but they should be worth it. The old saying that every once in a while, I have a couple sayings I tell my wife, because when you're doing what I've done in the past, you got a lot of arrows in your back. And I said, we're building a lot of neuroplasticity through this, because we only build it through stress, and then you got to recover. Yeah. Right. And then, we're building those neural networks to handle that stressful situation. That's why you either practice it in your mind or you do it in physical space. So in the process, if you can practice in your mind, then you can have all the failures there, and then you work it out, because the better you get at visualizing, the better the solution is. And also, thoughts are like thinking like a Tai Chi master. You're always going to have negative thoughts. The idea is, do you respond to it? Do you have an emotional reaction to it? Does it throw you off your game? Does anger control you? Do all these things? So you need to rehearse those triggers and then remove the ones that aren't producing the result you want in your life. But most people can't do that on their own. Usually you have a teacher or guru, as you say, and things like that. But what we know is that when the brain gets in these altered states of relaxation that are normal to us, these are all normal. We should be going through them all day long. If we were hunters and gatherers still, we'd walk by the stream and we'd get the 10 cycle. We might walk up the mountain and get the 7.8. Before we go to bed, we'll light a fire. We'll be by the bonfire, and that fire will burn at 10 hertz frequency and will put us into a state of alpha with infrared light. And so now instead of putting on another log and binge watching the fire, we go to bed at a right hour, before 10 o'clock. We make more melatonin than anyone ever thought possible. We wake up in the morning at the break of dawn with energy, without coffee, all of these things. And this is when the nervous system is functioning perfectly, right? But what happens is, I don't know anybody that's going to get rid of their technology today. I'm not going to. So I've got to learn to work with the world that we live in. And I'm going to tell everybody, you can't have it all. You can do it, but you have to know what's causing the biggest energy drain in your life. It could be physical, mental, or emotional. So once you find that out and you plug that gap, you will have more energy. And the more energy you have, the more you're going to be successful in business, because people want to do business with high energy people. They don't want to do business with low energy people that they don't inspire and motivate them to do whatever it is you're selling or telling. You need to have some emotional charge to it, because we make emotional decisions and then we justify them with logic. And that's with everything, not just buying an automobile or buying a watch or something like that. So we need to, once we know our emotions, energy and motion, we can train our brain and we can conquer the life that we live.
And I absolutely believe that. And you guys, for those of you that are still joining us now, a little late, but late is still better than not. We are talking to the creator of this incredible device called BrainTap. And Dr. Porter is a contributor at the Quantum University. He's developed this incredible device that has been assisting me for months now in my meditation, in my manifestation practices, my visualization practices. And I have been completely, I get typically invited and reached out to for podcasts and things of that nature. I actually reached out to Dr. Porter myself. I don't do that a lot, right? I DM Dr. Porter on Instagram, just so you guys know how this all happened. I DM'd him because this thing was blowing my mind. And I was like, I need to talk to this guy. I need to see who this man is and how he figured this out, because it's been a game changer for me. Right. And so I'm really happy to be able to share this with the community here, guys. In the description, there is a link. Dr. Porter was kind enough to give us a discount for all the people who are part of this community. So there's $100 off if you guys are interested in picking one of these devices up. I can tell you, I don't promote things that I don't believe in. It's just how I am, right? And I believe in this, guys. I believe in this wholeheartedly. It has absolutely done the things for me that Dr. Porter says it can do for you, allowing me to help change the way that I think, to see things as challenges instead of threats, to be able to get into the very deep states of meditation, so that in those states of meditation, I can then create the world experiences and the life experiences that I'm truly desiring. Now, Dr. Porter, you've probably talked to thousands of people who you've helped with this device. Could you share with us one of the coolest stories or one of the cooler things that people have been able to accomplish in their world by using this BrainTap mechanism?
Oh yeah, we've had some pretty incredible stories. In fact, if people do look at like hashtag BrainTap, they'll see some online right now. But I think the most incredible one, I had a woman come to see us at our clinic, and we had, we were going to put her on the light and sound machine and things like that. And her doctor said she only had 8 weeks to live. So I said, well, we're going to sign you up for a 9-week program. She said, well, didn't you understand? I'm coming here because I want to prepare to die. I said, well, it'll be all right if we prepare you to live each day of that life. He said, there's a saying, you should live each day like it's your last, but plan as if you're going to live forever. I said, can we start working on that? You might go in 8 weeks, you might not. So we started working with her. At the end of, as we're going through it, she moved from looking like she's going to a funeral every day to looking like she's going to a spring picnic to being happy. And then when she went back to the group that she was being treated by, because they were going to do and it was 9 weeks, and she had just finished her program, and they said, well, we must have misdiagnosed you, but they have 2 diagnoses of her problem. It was an immune dysfunction. And I told her, I said, all your immune system, you have something called psychoimmunology. Your immune system is tied to the way you think. So the worst thing for the immune system is fear, doubt, stress, anger, all of those things.
And you guys can all of you have experienced this. I mean, I've been upset and then gotten sick like that, right? Mm-hmm. If I allow myself to get into that emotional state, my immune system is shot, and I can get, a flu, or I get a cold or something, and then it just knocks me down even further. I'm sure everybody watching this has experienced that, right? And also, I've been around people where I've been in a great mood, and I walked into a room full of a house. The whole house was sick. I don't know, the kid brought it home from school, gave it to everybody in the house, and the entire house was sick. And I accidentally visit at that time, and I'm like thinking to myself, oh, this entire house is sick. But I was in a great mood. I was feeling fortified. I was feeling awesome. I'm like, it doesn't matter. I'll be fine. And guess what? I was fine. Nothing happened to me. Now, I'm not saying that maybe I didn't come into contact with it or whatever it was, but like I can tell that when I'm in a positive, better state, mentally, emotionally, energetically, spiritually, I am stronger. Physically, I am stronger. Mentally, I am stronger in how I deliver my talk and how I work, and my resiliency and being able to put up with rejection. Because in our world and what we do, especially in this world of wholesaling real estate, we get rejected all the time. We're getting offers rejected. Homeowners are hanging up on us or calling us terrible names. Have you ever gotten a phone call from somebody asking them if you want to sell your house?
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's my fault. and so now the next time one of these guys calls you, you'll be like, I know the guy who told you to do this. keep trying, because I'm not selling my house. But it's what we do is, so we're getting rejected all the time, and every once in a while we get somebody who says, you know what, actually I don't want this house anymore. It's like a rental, or it's like something's going on. And so this device, guys, is going to definitely help you with your energy levels. It's going to help you with your resiliency. As you heard just now, Dr. Porter gave us a story of somebody who had 8 weeks to live,
Mhm.
and
Turned it around. Yeah.
turned it
The other is,
around.
I want to say, when you start to expect things to happen, you put them out in the field as strange attractors. So that's when you're saying, but you have to keep focusing on that one. You can't be like looking at every shiny object, because like if you want to have a strategy that you work, then you have that strategy. You can't do it for, a week and then say it didn't work, especially when nobody on earth has ever done that before.
Sure.
You got to figure out what the timing is and how are you going to know you're having incremental success? Because if you are, you'll love the journey. And that's what your brain wants. That's the dopamine hit from accomplishing those goals along the way. And you can do that in a safe way instead of, trying to hit that big money winner. And then you don't have to work anymore. You don't have to work as hard. Work as hard as you want right now. Work smarter right now. The thing is that you can work a lot smarter if you start to learn from those people who already done it. That's I think that might be the last tip for neuroscience of money. But there are so many ways that they don't realize a lot of things they're doing. Like a lot of successful people, they just did it out of necessity, but they
Yeah.
found that it got them a result, and they listened to that result and they replicated the result that was getting them a benefit, not a liability.
Incredible. Guys, if we can, let's share some love for Dr. Porter in the chat. It's a Sunday. He's got a family, but he made a special consideration to come hang out with us. Weirdos who are doing having real estate conversations on a Sunday afternoon. He's like, well, I guess if that's what you guys are going to do, I'll come meet you where you are. And so here he is. And I appreciate it. I appreciate the time. I appreciate the knowledge. We've been looking at the side chat here, and the things that people are saying is, this conversation was gold. Thank you so much. It was life-changing. People really, really enjoyed getting to hear from you. What would be a way for folks to interact or learn more about you outside of, in the description, guys, there's a link for the BrainTap device. You can purchase it there. Dr. Porter has given us a discount, so thank you for that. How should people follow you on social media? What would be a great way for them to get a hold of you?
My website is drpatrickporter.com, drpatrickporter.com. And it has links to all my social media as well. And then, of course, the link that you give them, they can actually go there and do, if they're not ready to do the whole thing, they can read about it and they can use your link that you're sharing to do a 14-day trial. And they won't be charged until the 15th day. So if you don't like it, just cancel it. But we find about 70% of the people that do that will stick with it because they'll start to feel it with just the sound frequencies, but then they'll add the light frequency when they can afford it. That's the way it works. So we want to meet people again where they're at right now and help your brain function and help you to generate those positive frequencies so you see all those positive things in your life.
Beautiful. Again, God bless you, brother. Thank you so much for creating this device. Thank you for the work that you're doing in the world. You're raising the consciousness of humanity, and each of us has a responsibility in our own unique way. For me, I get to do it through, and I say this a lot. I said that one of the greatest bait and switches I think I've ever done is telling people that they were going to come here to learn about real estate, and in the process, we're going to transform ourselves.
That's awesome.
Thank you for creating this. Thank you for everything that you're doing out there, and thank you all for tuning in today and being a part of this. I highly recommend this, guys. As you know, I've been using this for months now. I had to test it. I had no prior relationship with Dr. Porter here whatsoever. I was referred this by a friend. Thank you. And I told my executive assistant to buy it for me and send it to my house right away. And she got it done. And there it was. I got it, and I'm like, oh my God, this thing is incredible looking. And then I put it on, and I had one of the deepest meditations I've ever had in my life. And that was on day one, right? And now it's been months, and I've been doing it morning and night. And now I'm going to be doing it morning, 2 p.m. and night. And I want to hear your guys' stories. When you guys get this, when you guys get this in your life, do me a favor, send me a picture and tag Dr. Porter, tag myself, and we're going to share it on our Instagrams. We'll reshare you on our Instagrams. I want to create an army of us users of this BrainTap technology, and because I truly believe that meditation saved my life. Meditation is why I'm a millionaire. I can wholeheartedly say that that's what I truly believe. And it saved me from addiction. It's turned me into a better human being. But when we can do it in a more deep way, like using the BrainTap device, we can actually create some incredible change in our life. So thank you so much again, guys. Make sure you click the link in the description or the link that was in the chat and get your hands on one of these BrainTap devices, and then send Dr. Porter and myself a photo of you. We'll share it on our IGs. I want to have a whole army of us BrainTap users. And if you're joining us after the live, if you're watching this, one of the few thousand that'll watch this after the live, you are here not on accident. There is no such. I'm speaking to you, okay, from the past. I think, yeah, I'm speaking to you from the past. You are here for a reason. You see this as your sign, and these signs, they're important. They're important. And when these signs come out and they knock us on the head, you're supposed to take action on them. So don't be that person who walks by that sign in their life that says, hey, this thing could actually do something for you. Don't be the person who sees the sign, walks by, and misses the boat. God bless you guys. Have an incredible rest of your Sunday. Thank you, Dr. Porter.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.